All right, I guess we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'm assuming everybody can see me and see everybody else. We have the recorder is running. So, and for everybody that might have missed part of the sessions, I'll tell you this, is that in one of the emails as a follow-up, I'll give you a link to where you can find the recordings for all the days. I might have missed Mondays. I'm not positive about that. I got to double check, but the rest of them I will definitely post up. We've got them. Today, we have with me as part of the panel, we've got Richie Creech, and Adam Jones is not really Adam Jones. That's Debra Dennis. And Richie and Debra work together. They're at Copy Pro, and they have achieved some significant success. So we wanted you to hear their story in their own words. And we also have with us Wes. And so, Wes, let me start with you. I know recently you did an interview with Debra and with Richie, and I wanted to ask you to tell us why you decided to interview them.
Well, I think all of us have been around long enough to know that we can go to the BTA seminars, that we can go to a lot of different places and hear a lot of great ideas. And with the best intentions, we oftentimes go back to the office and go, yep, we're going to do that. Gung ho, let's do this. We'll sign up for this program. And 3 months later, 6 months later, nothing's really changed. And the struggle with all change is that it's one, difficult, and two, finding leadership that will commit to making that change happen so that the organization actually focuses on what are we trying to accomplish and where are we trying to go. And Debra and Richie set a really unique example in that they fell into the first camp for a while and didn't kind of fully go, yeah, we like some of this stuff and this is great, but yeah, we'll use it. And then a commitment shift happened, and the amount of change and the success that they had, to me, really epitomized what great leadership looks like and what it takes to actually move the ball down the court. And so part of that interview was to understand, how did they get there? Because it's a challenge for all of us. You know, COVID has created plenty of things that we have to figure out how to change and evolve around. And so I think it's just a real good case study for what happens when you commit and follow through and have accountability to the changing that process. And they just really set an amazing example. So I just wanted to have everybody have an opportunity to see that at work.
Okay. Thank you, Wes. And so we're going to ask them some questions. And I'm going to start with Richie first. I have a question for him. And I want to ask, where were you in service? If you think back 5 years, just go back 5 years. And that would have been in the time frame that I was working with Conica Minolta and coming in to visit you. And where were you with service then?
Drinking from a fire hose. I know Deborah's got some stuff on that particular one that she was going to speak on as well, but really and truly it was from drinking from a fire hose. Like Wes said, you know, we had BI, and we were looking at BI, and I was looking at BI, and I had worked with Guy Wazell with BI at the time, and it just was a matter of, okay, I knew what it took to fix a copier. I knew what it took to talk with the guys and help them out from a service manager standpoint, but really from the number side of it, when it comes to the profitability and the, you know, cost savings and things of that nature, really didn't almost, I don't want to say I didn't have a clue, but in essence, I kind of didn't have a clue.
Okay. And how busy were your techs?
Extremely busy. I was extremely busy, you know, trying to pick up the tool bag and pick up the extra calls that were out there that nobody else could get to, as well as running some of the trouble calls because we didn't have some of the things in place that we needed to have in place.
Okay. And Debra, you can speak to the profitability and that side of the house. So how are things in service? I'm not asking for specific numbers, but how are things in service for you? Go back 5 years.
Go back 5 years. It was like, oh crap, things were going down. I mean, they're down. And really, when you compare where we were in 2015 to 2020, looking at 2020 numbers, we have had a 59% increase to the bottom line in the service department since 2015 compared to where we ended 2020. I mean, really, I don't think Richie and I, when we had talked with Nexera and said, okay, in 2016, we're like, we got to pass. We don't have the money to keep spending on Nexera. We need to save everything we can to the bottom line because we're bleeding. And, the guys at Nexera said, look, if you will do what we say do, and you will follow this recipe, I promise you it will change. And I got Richie's commitment, and we really just, and I have to give all the credit to him. I mean, certainly I was the one that made the phone call and said, we're going to be out. And then when they said, if you'll just listen to what we say and do what we say, you're going to see improvement. And I got with Richie, and he was like, I'm all in. I'll do whatever we need to do. Because we saw the bottom line just deteriorating. And it was a game changer. And it really, our revenues have pretty much, they've gone up about 4% since 2015. Certainly not at the rate that our bottom line has increased. And it's all about really, as Richie and I talk about, baking a perfect cake. If you've got all the ingredients to the cake, but you don't have a recipe, you're not going to make a cake. You're going to have the ingredients, but putting it all together. And it was a game changer for us.
Now, and it's interesting because, like I said, I was supporting you guys with Konica Minolta. And I remember Richie telling me that you guys were thinking about giving up on BEI. And I was like, no, because I go back with Wes at least 15, maybe 18 years now, because he brought BEI and shared it with Sharp, and Sharp let the DSMs have it. And the one change that I hated when I left Sharp was I lost access to the data, and I was winding up going to my dealers, asking them to give me information that I would much rather have been in the position to help them with.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what happens when you can see things. Now, so you kind of asked, my next question was what you thought about BEI, and you kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
So now let me go back to Richie for a minute. And where are you in service now, as far as what's the workload like, and how are things going in the service department now?
Great. We're able to meet time response with relative ease. We juggle a lot of stuff. When it comes to vacations, we got a lot of tenure. For our dealership, we really do have a lot of tenure. Most of my guys have 3 weeks vacation. When they call up and they're asking for vacation, we're able to easily give that, provided other guys aren't on vacation at the same time. And I myself am actually able to be in a position to look at and utilize these things. Like I mentioned, when we first logged on, or when I first logged on, one of the things that I've been able to spend most of the day on is analyzing the data in AIM, Advanced Inventory Management, which is one of the tools that's in Nexera, and really comb through it. That's where you're looking at your car stock levels, your call out levels, trying to use some brains and common sense to make the data work, and not pull back things that you don't need to pull back, and not give things that you need to give, because sometimes it'll suggest boards, and by no means do you want to carry $3,000 boards. So you have to kind of analyze it and look at it. 5 years ago, there was no time to do that at all. Again, as you well know, how many times did you have to tell me you got to put down that tool bag every now and then? And I'm able to do that. Pete Litford is my area service manager, and he even has the time now to work through this with me. He works a whole lot closer with the technicians in the field than I do now. So he has that working knowledge of, okay, that part number is the same as this part number. And sometimes those things can get challenging, and he has the time to be able to do that now. And as we've created that time to where we can utilize these tools, it continues to create more time for us.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know I shared this story with you in class, and I probably shared it with you even before class. But when I had, it was really interesting. I worked with a dealer when I was working at Sharp with a company that was just going on to at that time it was BEI. And I was talking to a service manager, and he said, his techs were doing 9 calls a day. And I said, you got to slow them down. You've got to make them slow down, He says, we can't, we're too busy. And then they went on BEI or Nexera, and then they went on the tech comp program. And the next time I was up in the area after they'd had that for a little while, I asked him how things were going. He says, I don't know what to do with my techs. I don't know how to keep them out of the office. You know, and I said, it's imagine that. Kind of interesting what happens when they slow down. You know,
Well, it is.
Go ahead, Richie.
Kind of as a point to that, you know, right now, you know, we're all dealing with COVID. So, you know, you asked the question, what can I do with my techs? You know, we deal a lot with military guys. I love hiring the guys that are from the military, you know, our veterans. You know, they got a work ethic. You know, they can follow directions. You know, they have, especially the Marines that we got on board. What is their motto? Talking about adapting, but certainly can adapt to most any circumstance you can put them in. But what that also means is they've already got 20 plus years somewhere. They're already retired. So, you know, through all of this stuff, as we've progressed really from 2015 till now, you know, I haven't really had that problem, because as guys have gotten to that point where they've decided that they are ready to retire from their second, maybe even their third job, we haven't had to hire in those places. So, you know, that has created a lot of that, and has really benefited us through this COVID period, because we've had some guys that have been like, hey, you know, I really don't want to deal with all this kind of stuff. You know, I'm at that age where, you know, they're saying that this is not a good place for us to be out in the public. And, you know, they've stepped to the side and retired. And it really has been a benefit because of the space that has been created from 2015 till now.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm sure you'll remember me making this statement in class, that you view techs that you're not fully occupied right now as a resource for the future, not as an expense to eliminate.
Yes, it allows you to grow. It really gives you the space to grow, which is where I think we all are now, looking at coming on the other side of this thing and trying to grow our business.
Okay, and from your perspective, Debra, how are things in service now?
Oh, you know, I look at it really, it's night and day. Yeah, and I think I may have said this earlier. We got on BEI, now Nexera, back in 2009. And, you know, we played around with it. You know, we do some territory, but really it was not having the buy-in, but really getting Richie, putting the teeth into it, and him really living and breathing the whole thing. Even, our parts to revenue back in 2015 was 17%. Last year was 11%. And it's really just about effectiveness. And he was talking about the technicians. We had, as a total department, included Richie back in 2015, it was 19 people. That's down to, what did we say, Richie, 15? I think you did 15?
Yep.
15. And really that we didn't get rid of anybody, because it's kind of been a phased in approach. But really just in the work ethic these guys have, the communication level, you know, you can hear them talking about things, and really the camaraderie. And I really think all of them, at first they were like, well, what is all this? But it really has become a joy. You know, Pete meets with them, takes them out to lunch, you know, once a month. They do their assessments. Total different service department, and a good change.
Okay, very good. So let me ask both of you now this question. How do you both feel about BEI now?
I couldn't do my job without it. Could not do my job without it.
And I wouldn't let him.
Yeah. And by the way, what was your first call efficiency the last time that you looked, Richie? Do you have that number off the top of the head? Because I know it was pretty high.
Well, for this particular month, we are at 74%.
You want to ask us where we were in 2016?
Yeah, let's ask that number.
30.
30. What was it, Richie? 36?
36.
Yeah. 36.
So you've gone from 36% first call efficiency to 74% first call efficiency. And let me, I'm going to throw Wes a curveball here. So tell me how often people get to a true 74% first call efficiency, because we're not talking about what you get out of CEO juice or what you get out of some of the other softwares that you can manipulate. But for real first call efficiency, how good is 74%, Wes?
They're in the top 5 dealers in the nation for our customer base right now.
Okay. So you guys,
It's
I
hard
would-
to get there. It's even more difficult to maintain it because of the amount of fine tuning that has to happen. My analogy is a fruit tree. It's real easy to get the fruit on the lowest branch of the tree. But as you pick off all that fruit and get higher and higher up in the tree, it gets incrementally more difficult to get that fruit. So when you start at 36, you're lopping off the fruit at the bottom of the tree. When you start getting to 50%, you're midway up the tree. You get to 60, you're 2/3 of the way to the top of the tree. Once you get into that 70% range, you're in the thin air and you're going, okay, there's a lot of little details that have to work to get there and to stay there. And that's where now you have time to continue that learning process, right? So it would be almost impossible to slip back down to 36% just because of what you learn on the journey getting to that fruit at the top of the tree.
Mhm.
Okay. And one more quick question for Wes, and then I'll come back to, I see Debra and Richie both.
I'm
just
about
chomping at
to
the
say something good.
What's the average dealer at right now, would you say?
Now across our entire customer base is about 48%.
Okay, so that's a significant improvement above the average. Okay, so let's. Debra was just chomping at the bit. I'll let you go first, Debra. Then we'll
Okay,
get
I
Richie.
want to just say this because I know some people say, well, God, that's a change. What did y'all do? What kind of call types? Y'all change your parameters on, your callbacks? Either no, it's all based on BI. And Richie laughs. I'm an old dispatcher. I started here 34 years ago, and I was a dispatcher. That was my job. So I always make sure Richie is doing the things he's supposed to do. And when we started having so much success, I'm like, come here. Okay, what did you change? It's like, this is almost too good to be true. And really, all he did was do exactly what he was taught to do, and has done just a phenomenal job. So it really is just, if you just follow the process, and again, it's not going to happen overnight. It does take some time, and as Wes said, it's a climb. We're not going to slip back.
Well, I mean, it's work. Wes used the word work. A lot of people are afraid of work, and I'm lucky enough to be, part of a team that everybody is willing to roll up their sleeves and go to work at their specific of what they're supposed to do. Football season just ended, and I'm a big sports guy, and these folks around here get tired of my sports analogies a lot of times, but there is a winning formula. People talk about the Patriot way or the Tom Brady way, or things of that nature, but there really is a formula. But the biggest part of that formula is work. I mean, these tools are great. Anybody out there that's wanting to try them, I suggest you try them. Give it a try, because they're a game changer, but they don't do it on their own. You've got to work. You've got to put in the work. You've got to put in the time. They're great, but without that work, it's just a tool that's sitting on the bench that won't do you any good.
Okay, so I'll start this question with Richie. How has the management training that you and Pete have gone through impacted your department? Well,
quite a bit. There's a training on there's the job, there's the mechanics behind the job. There's the management piece of it, from the number side, but then there's the management piece of it from the people side. And while the next era stuff was making a lot of sense and starting to gain ground with that, the leadership training, and I'll use the word leadership training because I truly believe that was a big part of what that class was about, Ken. It really helped. I heard for years, dress for success. I didn't always wear a sport coat. I wear a sport coat to work now. Obviously I take it off before I work on a machine. But it was a big part of it because you couldn't get but so far without getting the buy-in from the guys. And that's where the leadership and the coaching comes in. Working with you and working with Jack Duncan Consulting, between the two, it really married up for me quite nicely to be able to understand how to motivate the guys. And that's always a struggle. Every day people get up with a different mood. Some people get up on the wrong side of the bed, and it's a different group that happens with every day. But to continue to try to learn. You mentioned yesterday talking about the book club. I know you were probably picking on me when it come to that. But never been a reader. Going through your class, you had required reading, which I was not a fan of. But as I read it and then putting it together with, with the lessons and the things that I was learning from Jack and the things that I was seeing in BEI, it's a full scope. Like Debra mentioned earlier with the recipe, it's part of the recipe, and then the training helps you understand what ingredients, how much of each ingredients goes in and when. So it was that next step going through that management training.
Okay. And so, Debra, let me ask you, what was your opinion of the impact of the training? Both classes on Richie, and then we'll talk about on Pete as well.
Yeah, I will tell you with Richie, I think I saw a lot of improvement in Richie. Again, everybody was like, why's Richie wearing a sport jacket all the time? That was like, everybody knew something was up. But really in just the way he dealt with, problem issues, our sales reps, the positive feedback. I mean, really within, and you and I had talked about it. I was like, now, Ken, I don't know if this is going to be worth the money. It was worth every penny. He just latched right onto it. Matter of fact, he was growing so much in his leadership skills. We actually got him to teach a book club class to all of our supervisors across the team. Just really because you could tell the fundamentals were there. And I think one of the biggest testaments to it was one of our sales reps, actually a couple of them, sent emails to me. It's like, I don't know what y'all done to Richie, but man, he is so phenomenal to work with. That doesn't mean he was bad to work with before. Let me just clarify that. But really just the positive change and the motivation that he was giving them and helping them grow this business. So it phenomenal, great change. And again, I wouldn't want to have one without the other because I think it was a whole package.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so let me ask you this for the people that are listening in the audience, do you think that leveraging the technology with Nexera and the training is a good strategy for dealers? Is it something you'd recommend that other dealers think about?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
I think both Richie and I feel exactly the same way. When you worked with us, when you were our rep before, you kind of preached those things, and you were right. I mean, it really is about really the training and working with Nexera and taking the courses from you. It's a package. Wouldn't want to do it without you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there is no way. I mean, I know how hard-headed I am. There is no way.
Now you're going to be unhappy that I recorded this.
Look, there's no way. I mean, when you take a technician, I think you mentioned it earlier in the week. I know you mentioned earlier in the week about a lot of dealerships take their most successful technician or their most successful sales rep and they promote them. That's not completely what happened here. At least I would like to think that Debra saw something a little bit more than my mechanical.
Yes, I absolutely did.
But I mean, a lot of it. So it's the combination. I mean, there's guys out there. I mean, Nick Saban, Tom Brady. There's hitters. I mean, tons of hitters out there. When it comes to hitting coaches, quarterback coaches. There's financial advisors that hire coaches. I'm a firm believer that you've got to have somebody that can help keep you accountable. Debra does a great job of that, but from the other side of that, she doesn't see everything. She can't. She's one person. So, Ken, you're a part of it. Jack Duncan's a part of it. Wes and his team is a part of it. I get emails from Guy on a fairly regular basis. Hey, did you see this? And it really is. I mean, anybody out there, if you're wanting to get to the next step, I recommend maybe Ken, if you can't afford necessarily Nexera on a monthly basis, spend the money for Ken's packages, because after you do that, after you send your service manager through that, I don't see how you could not go down the road of getting Nexera at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And short of it sounding like an infomercial, the key message and one of the lines that I've used over and over again since our interview with Debra was that it's about going all in. It's about taking any program that you do and going all in, because you'll never know how successful or unsuccessful the program will be until you make that commitment. So it doesn't matter which program you pick. If you decide to go with something, go all in and run it to its conclusion so that you actually get a good taste of it. As I mentioned, many times we come back as owners and we go to seminars and we come back with all of these great ideas and we vomit on everybody at the office about how we're going to do this, and that's the end of it. You know, and I've done it myself plenty of times, so I'm not casting stones that I haven't already done myself, but it's very hard sometimes to judge the quality or the success of any one program unless you go all in. And so I thank Debra for giving us that little nugget, because it's very, very true. And this is an example. So whether it's training, managing your ERP, programs, anything that you do, commit to it and go all in before you decide to back out of it and get sidetracked chasing another fire.
Yes.
Okay, so if you guys are okay, I'm going to open it up to the audience to see if we have any questions. You can either type it in the chat or hold your hand up. For those that don't know how to do it, you can go down to the bottom and where it says reactions, you click on that and you can hold your hand up, but I'll give everybody a chance for a minute. And while you guys are formulating questions, if you have any, what Wes and I have decided to do, because we know what will happen if you go all in, and we know what can happen in a year's time. You're going to see in the chat down below, and in just a second, a link will pop in. And what we have done is we're putting together a package for you that includes all of my training for your service managers. It's going to include the troubleshooting course that I include. It includes a year of my one-on-one coaching program. It's going to include BEI services that you may not currently be using, and if you're new to BEI, let me back up for 1 second. If you're new to BEI and new to me, we're going to give you, Wes, you're going to give them a month's access to the data. Is that correct, Wes?
Yeah, we'll do a complete evaluation of the organization from a service standpoint, and a month's access to the information after we do that, to start setting the baselines for where you want to start going forward.
And to throw into that, if you're brand new to both of us, I'm going to throw in a month of free consulting, and there's no limit on it. We will work together to try to figure out with what you learned from Wes. I'm sorry, I just checked for the link that I didn't see. So collectively, to help you see where you are and give you an idea of where you could go. But for those of you that may have used one of our services, there's going to be a link down there, and what it'll do is be a link that you can use to schedule a phone call. And because we don't know the size of your organization, we don't know what's involved, we're going to give custom quotes for it. So we'll have a conversation with you, and then we'll deliver to you, a quote. And the one thing I can tell you is this is a deal that you will not get anywhere else, and you won't be able to find prices like this. The link's down in the chat now. You can just click on it to start scheduling. And I will say that collectively you will save in the thousands of dollars on the program that we're offering, because we know that if you will listen and apply what we talk about, you're going to have the ability to achieve some amazing success. Now, there's a lot of people on the call that are using Nexera now, I believe. I know there's several. There's people on the call that have used it that had it and never really used it. And there's people probably that have never had it. But collectively, we want to make sure that if you decide to work with us, that we help you succeed. Because this is not about us getting rich. It's about you guys being successful. Because what we know is if you're successful, then we'll have a long-term relationship with you. And that's what we care about. That's why we gave you, hopefully what was some real value this week. I will encourage everybody to come back for tomorrow, last day. And everybody likes to play hooky on Fridays, I understand. But we're going to talk about procedures, and we're going to go back and revisit some of what Wes talked about, some of the things I talked about, and just I want to outline some thought processes. These again are things that Richie's heard me preach about, several times. He's been through 2 courses, and I preach it in both of them. But it is getting the structure, you could say. I'll go back to, I love Debra's comment about the recipe, because part of that recipe is the procedure. You could have the exact ingredients for a cake, but if you don't know how long to cook it at what temperature, you're not going to get much out in the way of a good cake. So it's having the tools and having all the ingredients, but it's also having the proper procedures that help you really succeed.
Well, I'll go back to the sports analogy. If you're wondering kind of what Nexera is, if you haven't used it before, or if you are using it, I see Pete, he's on the call. You've heard me mention him earlier. Any athlete that's worth his weight at all, he watches video. He watches the video of the games. He watches game film. He watches the game film prior to the game of the opponent he's watching or going to be coming up against, to see what it is that he can pick apart to be able to win that contest. After the game, he's watching the video of himself and trying to pick apart the mistakes he's made, not what he did right, but the mistakes he's made. And that's what Pete and I, we do every week. We do it weekly, we do it monthly. There's a tech assessment package of Nexera. That is the game film. That is your game film. The snapshot is your game film, reviewing the callbacks, reviewing the service call histories from the callback. That's the game film. You're looking for that fruit. You're talking about the higher the fruit. I'm 6'5", so I do have a little bit of advantage on that. But that's what you have to do. Is treat this as your game film. Tear it apart. The data's there. You just got to get into it and you got to tear it apart. And you can get the data in other places. Not saying, not taking anything away from Nexera, or not adding anything to anybody else, but you can get the data from other places. It's just that Nexera puts it together in such a package that it does make life a little easier.
Thank you.
And I'm going to chime in because I'm not selling Nexera, but I'm a firm believer in it. It's a tool. It's like you can go out there and you might be able to cut a tree down with your toothbrush. It's going to be a long, painful, slow process. Or you can get a chainsaw. And when it comes to understanding a data, Nexera, the information and the way that they organize it for you is like having the biggest, best chainsaw you can find. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer in that. You can use other tools. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying that if you want to be effective, and again, we only have so many hours in each day. My wife gets on me. I tell a story on myself. My wife gets on me because I tend to buy software tools for my business, but it's so that I can go farther, faster. I could build a website and code it in HTML, but I couldn't change it, once a year because it would be such a long, laborious process. I have an app that I use that makes it much easier. And so like I said, with Nexera, it gives you the data in a way that you can access it quickly and easily and understand what you need to do with it.
That's where the coaching comes in. That coaching helps you understand. It helps you know where to start at.
Okay. And I haven't seen any questions. So like I said, I will be sending an email out. How did we do for time? Oh, we're quick today.
I've got some more sports analogies.
Huh?
I've got some more sports analogies if you want.
Well, I love the thing about the coaching, and Richie and I were talking about yesterday because I was talking to a gentleman that I did an interview with, and he's a internationally acclaimed bassist. He writes, he has a consulting business. But he was talking about the fact, and I mean, he writes books that are recommended by like Entrepreneur Magazine and as top 15 books, so he's a significant writer. And he made the statement, he said, I have a writing coach, I have a speaking coach, and he made the point. He said, you think about Tom Brady, 10 Super Bowls, 7 wins, and he still hires somebody. And I like what Richie said, he hires a $50,000 or $100,000 a year guy to coach him, and he's a $40 million a year guy. But it is having the somebody outside that can look at it and think about it differently than you do. Just to I'll go back to an analogy I use quite a bit, probably too much. But a lot of times in business, we get into a rut, and you think about it, you get your car in a rut and you're stuck a little bit and you spin your wheels. And what do? You just dig the rut deep enough. Well, with a business, you can dig the rut deep enough so that if you close it in, you've got a grave. Because you've dug a hole so deep you can't get out of it. And so sometimes it takes somebody outside to push you in a direction so that you get out of the rut and start to make some progress. Anyway, I think we can call it. I appreciate very much Wes and Debra and Richie and Adam for all being here on the call today. And like I said, it's been a joy working with you guys, and we'll continue to work together, I am sure. Any final thoughts, Wes? I've been talking a lot. You're muted. Wes, you're muted.
So just to second what Ken said, if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to me directly, they can reach out to me through the website. I'm happy to have discussions, answer questions, no commitment, no sales. Yeah. And you'll notice how hard the sales pitch was today. And this has been the only time you've heard a sales commercial in the whole course, and none tomorrow. I'll second what Wes said is I'd be glad to jump on a Zoom call with anybody if you got a question. If you're watching the replay and you have a question. Now, this offer that we opened up today will be good until next Wednesday at midnight. So if you're interested in it, you want to get your call scheduled between now and midnight next Wednesday. And because, can't give the store away forever. We got to put a limit on that. Yep. So you will get a couple of follow-up emails to remind you, and hopefully we can do some things to help you guys. Awesome. And again, thanks, Debra, and thanks, Richie. We appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. You too, both of you. You've been a game changer.
Thank you much. Mm-hmm.